In this video, we are going to be talking about why you should always charge higher prices. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And by the way, if you want to take your sales game to the next level, make sure to check out my free training on saleslegacy.com. Link is also in the description where you're gonna learn everything you need to know when it comes to sales, selling on the phone, selling in person, cold email, lead generation, LinkedIn, you name it, it is all there. So make sure to check out the 1-hour free training on saleslegacy.com. So recently, as you know, I started an NFT agency, basically offering advisory services, consulting services, helping other people launch their NFT projects. Now, the thing that I've been learning as of late is that it's actually in your advantage if you are an entrepreneur, agency owner, or whatever the case is, to charge higher prices, right? And I know a lot of times when you guys are starting out, you know, maybe you don't feel super confident in yourself and that you're like, all right, well, I'll just charge a cheaper price so that I can actually get clients. And I get that. But I've learned that actually that's a race to the bottom. It doesn't actually work out because when you charge cheap prices, sure, you get the client, but you got to do a lot of work for very little money. Instead, what I've learned is that you want to position yourself in a way where, you know, you are the most expensive because you offer the best thing, right? And there's going to be a lot of clients out there that they will pay for the best because they just want to get the job done in a professional way. And that if you do the job right, theoretically should make a lot more money than whatever they paid you, right? And when you're charging higher prices, what ends up happening is that you have more money to hire different staff, hire the best staff possible, or if you're doing something by yourself, like freelancing, for example, or consulting, then you get paid more and you feel more motivated to actually do a hell of a good job. So charging higher prices at the end of the day is actually super important to have healthy margins, right? So if you look at some of the most successful businesses out there, it is luxury product, right? So like Louis Vuitton, LVMH, stuff like that, they are companies that produce like some of the most profit in companies in the world because of their high margins, and they're able to sell brand, prestige, status, and things like that. They're able to hire the best people, pay these crazy salaries and things like that to do innovative things that other people just can't compete with, right? So the more money, the more margin you have, the more money you can invest in R&D and try something new that, you know, someone who just has like a thin profit margin, they can't even experiment because they're going to be going in the red. But when you charge the higher prices, it's like you have plenty of leeway to do things. You have more time, more space, and you can also have less clients as well and still make more than someone that has like 50 clients but charging like $10 a month, right? Obviously, if you're selling a software or something like that where you don't have to actually work to make money, that's cool, that's different. But I'm talking more like, personally for me, I would rather make more money serving fewer clients than a lot of clients because it's less of a headache and you get to work with the best, right? And also, if you think about it, the people that can pay the most money probably are the best clients as well because they know what they're doing. They probably have a very competent team, but they need that extra help. So why not charge them a high price that you feel it's worth it for you? How do you know how much you're worth? I feel like, you know, you got to get in the door with people and actually like sell them. But the first thing is like, you don't really have to know in the beginning because you can ask for someone's budget. That's kind of what I did when I started my agency. And it's like, you just ask them like, hey, you're trying to do XYZ, like you have a budget for this. And then you kind of calculate like, well, where do you actually fit in? And does that number make sense for you, right? And so that's a pretty good way to start, by asking another person's budget, because sometimes the skill that you have might be worth a lot more than you realize. And people might be willing to pay a lot more for that skill. Now, you actually have to have a skill or product or something that is of value, right? If it's not of value, then you're not going to charge much. Actually, the first step is actually understanding what it is that you're offering, and is it actually creating value in someone's life, and you can work backwards from there. So for example, let's say, you know, someone's launching an NFT project and they plan to make $1 million, just hypothetical, right? So let's say they paid me $100,000 to help them do the sales, marketing, whatever. Well, if they're going to make $1 million and they're only paying me $100K plus their staff or whatever, for them, it might be worth it, right? As long as their profit margin is healthy. So in that situation, yeah, you know, if I charge $100K to help them sell, well, they'll be like, well, if Patrick helps me sell, I make $1 million. If I don't hire him, I don't know if I can sell this, and I don't know if my project will fail. So I think it's going to be worth it, right? And so that's the mindset you want to have, where no matter what price you're charging, you're helping them make more money or saving more time, which in the end helps them make more money. That's the most important. Now, if you're not clear on whether or not you're helping someone make money, then don't expect them to be clear on giving you a lot of money, right? Because it's actually your fault for not providing something of value. Sometimes you might be selling something where you go to a client and they just like lowball you, right? Maybe you want to sell something for like $1,000 and they're like, nah, we can only do $200, right? And it's like, what do you do in that situation if the price they're offering is just way too low and they're just lowballing you and they don't want to negotiate? I think first you got to understand your value. Like if you want to charge $1,000 for something, is it actually worth it? I think that's the first question you have to answer. If it is, great, move on to the next step. If it's not, go back to the drawing board and figure out what you can offer that's of value, right? If you're worth more than $1,000 and someone's asking for $200, then you just walk away, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're desperate, and you don't want to be working for low pay as well, because it's like you're going to be known as a guy who's like doing like cheap stuff, and you never want to fall into that category. You want to be in the premium side. You want to be so in high demand that people have to like, please, Patrick, let me work with you. Like, you know, whatever it takes, I'll pay you anything. That's the position you want to be in because it's more leverage. And if you're good at what you do and you offer something that people find a value, then you can be in that position. Now, if you're not in that position, you really have to think like your offer probably isn't good. Whatever you're selling, it probably is not of value. Otherwise, people would pay for it, right? And then it's also like, how good are you in marketing those services? So it all comes down to, are you actually offering something of value? And then from there, if you are, use the points on why it should be that value and negotiate with the other person, right? Like for me, I'm not afraid to throw high prices. I'm not afraid for people to say no, because fortunately, I'm in a position in my life where if I can walk away from a deal and I don't get the income or whatever, it's good. It doesn't matter because I have other sources of revenue, right? For other people, I can understand that if you only have one hand that feeds you, then it's like you're not in the position to negotiate, because they just be like, okay, I don't want to work for you anymore. And then if you don't have a way to generate leads, then you don't know when the next meal is coming, right? So being in a position of leverage is important, and creating or designing your life in a way where you have leverage is actually very important as an entrepreneur, at least. In situations, you might have competition where they're just willing to do something for super cheap, right? I mean, the problem really comes from positioning, right? So for example, I'm sure you can find an NFT consultant on Fiverr and Upwork, right? But those guys aren't even my competition. Actually, when I talk to clients, there is no competition. It's either they want to work with me or they don't want to work with me for whatever reason. Maybe there's not a good fit, right? So you just have to position yourself in a way where you're perceived as different and what you're offering is perceived as different as well. And there's different things you can do, right? For example, if you know their exact problem and they feel like you can solve it, that's like point number one. If it's easy for them to work with you and they don't have to do much work and you can take care of everything, that's another point. The speed at which you do how you solve that problem is important as well. So if someone takes like 1 month to do something, what if you did it in 1 week? Now you're of value. So there's all these different elements and triggers that you can pull, or strings you can pull, to increase the value of your proposition. But again, it's just like being able to actually deliver on that, right? So it's like if you make a big promise and you can deliver on that promise and other people cannot fulfill the same promise, then you are of value, right? So it doesn't make sense for someone to, compare you on pricing because you don't even offer the same thing, right? Let's say you're 10 times faster than the next guy. You cannot compare prices at that point, right? Like if you go to a dentist and somebody says like, we got to do surgery, it's going to take 10 hours. Great, right? But if someone said we can do the same surgery in 10 minutes, you're definitely down to pay that person a lot more money to get it done in 10 minutes because 10 hours sounds like a pain. Different ways to provide value and offer and make yourself be perceived as different, right? And that's something I learned in sales. To be perceived as better, you got to be first perceived as different. If you're not different, you're going to be seen the same as everybody else. And if you're the same as everybody else, then your prices should be the same as everybody else. But for me, I like to kind of brand myself from a positioning standpoint as luxury, right? Like, or premium, or like, I want to be the Louis Vuitton of like, NFT consulting, right? I don't want to be the freaking Walmart of NFT consulting. Otherwise, it's like, how can you even like make a living on that, right? Margin's so thin. So let's say you do offer a great product and service, but like, how do you get people to know who you are? For me personally, because I'm pretty strong at making videos and I've done it for so many years, that's pretty much my lead generation, right? So all I got to do for me is create a bunch of YouTube videos every week. I probably drop 3 to 6 YouTube videos, depending on what I'm doing that week, every single week. And because of that consistency, more and more people know me in the NFT space. And because I am pretty ethical in how I do things and I don't scam people, for the most part, I have a good reputation. Word of mouth, people tell their friends about me and things like that. And that's pretty much how I get clients. And it's like, they'll just DM me on Twitter and be like, hey, do you want to have a chat? And that's literally how I get my clients. Gary Vee always says it, right? Like he's like content. And yeah, it's true. You got to create content. You got to show people you know what you're doing and they will come to you. Now, if you're not great at creating content, well, you can also do outbound, right? You can cold email people, which, I do teach in like Sales Legacy, which is my masterclass. Link is in the description. It's kind of harder in a sense. Well, it's not necessarily harder. It's just different skill sets. You're reaching out to them cold and you're trying to get them to get a meeting with you and you try to sell them. But for me, I like the warm aspect of it, especially because I've done both now, right? I've done the cold email thing and all that stuff in the tech world. And then I've done the content creation stuff and, being like a consultant and advisor now. I would say like doing the content stuff is more fun because you build a brand, right? And when you have a brand, you can do a lot of things with that. And then the moment I'm like, hey, I offer these services, people are just going to come to me because they're like, I've been watching him for so long. He knows what he's doing and I want to work with this guy. So both ways work, but you just have to find at least one way to generate leads. For me, warm is better during this particular time in my life for this agency stuff. But in the future, maybe outbound is more important if I want to reach out to specific companies I think should launch an NFT project. Let's say you charge a high price. How do you make people feel comfortable with that? I think first is like understanding their budget. Some people are just going to spend the money without question, so it's not a big deal. Other ways you can do is like pay half now, pay half later, have certain guarantees where if I don't get X result, you're going to get your money back. So the different guarantees that you can have. So I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how you want to spin it, it's just like, what are they paying for? How confident do they feel that you can do the job? And if you do not do the job, what's your guarantee to give them that money back? You answer those questions and you are good to go. So as you charge high prices and things like that, you're gonna keep wanting to increase your price, right? The reason why you increase your price is because one, inflation, the value of dollar is decreasing, so you want to, keep up with inflation for sure. Second is that you need to keep finding ways to improve your product and service, making it easier for your clients, get a better result, and get more marketing and things like that. Build a brand, build confidence, and all these things allow you to charge higher prices. So I would say continue to charge higher prices, because if people paid you when you don't have much credibility and you already charge a high price, what would they pay if you did have some credibility, some clients under your belt, and people are willing to pay for that confidence. So always think about how you can charge higher prices, and you can also charge higher prices and make it easier for yourself, where you don't have to actually work more. You can create system, SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures, hire different people to actually do the work. So yeah, so it's like you charge higher prices and reduce the cost it takes you to do the actual thing, and then you just keep increasing your margins if possible, right? And so that said, that's a lot of the lessons that I've learned during my time starting an agency in the NFT space and doing sales for a long time. Hopefully you got some value out of that. If you did, make sure to give a like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And if you want to learn everything when it comes to sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, working in tech sales, working as an employee, whatever the case is, make sure to check out my free training on saleslegacy.com. Link is also in the description if you want to take your sales game to the next level. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next one.